chapter 5. And starting to get a little bit meatier, but this is our 5th day of class, and we're in chapter 5 already. So we're moving right along. Chapter 5, loops. Hopefully all of you are like, woohoo, I remember loops. Going back to Java, the first section in the book, when we talked about looping, that was chapter 4. It's off by 1 chapter, but we're in chapter 5. And one of the first things we talked about was this pre-increment and this post-increment. Okay, so right now for each of these, X has a value of 6, Y has a value of 8. If I execute this line of code, X equals plus plus Y, what's my value for X? What's my value for Y? And if I got ready and executed this line of code, X equals Y plus plus, what's the value for X and what's the value for Y? Here we go. What do we got here? Give me an X.
9.
I hear a 9. Give me a Y.
Eight.
I hear an 8. Over here, give me an X.
6.
I hear a 6. Give me a Y. What do you think it is?
5.
A 5?
Yep.
You have, what?
8.
Somebody Howard 8, okay? 8. You have one of the 4 correct. Hey, Mohammed's here. Check his name off. You have one of the 4 correct. Which one would you like to change?
X.
The Y on the left should be 9.
The Y on the left should be 9.
Y on the right should be 9.
Yeah.
Y on the right should be 9.
Yeah.
The X on the right should be 8.
And the X on the right should be 8. Yes, you do have them all correct. All right, let's see what we have. This guy says increment Y first. So Y does now get the value of 9. After you increment it, assign it to X. So X would get the value of 9. Over here, the assignment operator comes first. So X is going to get the value of Y, which is 8. And then Y is going to get incremented and become 9. All right, good, good. So the reason we do this is because you'll use Y++ a lot. I just want to make sure we don't ever get them confused thinking they're the same, because as you can see, this X is 9, this X is 8. It doesn't make a difference. Okay, in our loops, one of the things that I go over and over and over and over again is we have a loop and we use this variable that controls our loop, and we have to do 3 things to the variable that controls the loop. We have to give an initial value, some sort of starting value to get us up and going. We have to have a check, and then we have to have some sort of increment or update, right? We always need to have those 3 things going on. A little bit of what's going on with the first type of loop, just like in Java, it was the while loop. Run 0 or more times. It's called a pre-test. One of the things it's good for is input validation. Please enter a number. I'm sorry, that number is not good. Please enter a new number. And hopefully you remember doing a lot of that. The while loop is the only one that we need to know. Again, it runs 0 or more times. And as you program more and more, you'll see why 0 or more times is important. Because you may say enter a number 1 to 10, and they may enter a 3 and it's good to go. Okay? While loop has its check inside of this diamond. For example, if X is greater than 50, I come into the body and I go back up and ask it again. The body could be multiple lines. So one of these will be a true coming out. One of these will be a false coming out. All right, what's the while loop look like? Down here is an example. Num equals 0 while num is less than 5, and I have an increment. I have my initial value, I had the check, and I had the increment. Coming off of chapter 7 from Java, you did all that work with arrays, and you use loops over and over and over and over and over. Not necessarily the while loop, a different one. Oh, I'm so excited. Finally, those of you that were in my Java class, I had a test question. What's an infinite loop? Give an example of an infinite loop. What would be the quickest way to change this example to an infinite loop?
Semicolon.
Yeah, I could put a semicolon at the, excellent. A semicolon at the end of that while says, while num is less than 5, do nothing. So num is always less than 5. Yeah, that would really mess things up. That's an excellent win. I could make this while num is greater than 0, or greater than or equal to 0. I could eliminate this line. Lots of different ways to get stuck in that infinite loop. Oops. The next loop was the do while loop. The body came first before I asked the question. Depending on the question, I'd go back up and redo the body. Otherwise, I would leave. Okay? A do while loop runs at least one time. And we have two really good uses for that. The one is the run again option, which hopefully you kind of remember. The other is when I have a menu program, because I want to get in here and display the menu, do certain things, and then decide if I want to continue and go through again. Okay. Unlike the last one where the diamond came first, the check came first, this one comes at the end, and it's known as a post test, not a pre-test. Quick example, in x equals 1, do C out x plus plus while x is less than 10. Okay, it's going to go at least once because my check isn't until I get down here to the bottom. And then finally, the one that you use 90% of the time, not always, because the while loop is definitely coming back in the do loop. There are times we use each one of those. Okay, the for loop. The for loop. All right, this is when you know the exact number of iterations. For me, that's the only time you use a for loop. I know some of you like to use for loops and break and jump out, and yeah, that leads to some crazy programming after a while. But the for loop is only when I want to run it a certain number of times. Okay, so far so good. A couple of other notes. A nested loop. We've heard the terminology before. It's a loop inside of a loop. Just like we had nested if statements, we also have nested loops. Working with files. There's examples in this chapter of working with files. And they were the code, some of the code listings. Finally, sentinel value. It's a value used to exit from a loop. -1 is a big one. For example, I may be saying, I don't know how many people there are, but in a class, and I want to get an average. So please enter a test score. Enter -1 to exit. So I'd have a loop where I could keep reading them in until I got that -1. And again, that's called a sentinel value. Nested loops up here. I have, I ran out of room. For row equals 3 or 0, row is less than 3, row plus plus. Column, for column equals 0. And it would let me go through a 2-dimensional array. I don't like that up there. I'm going to get rid of that. Hopefully it's not recorded. Oh, I did record. All right. So you're all familiar with loops. I don't want to drag this on. We're going to jump to writing some code. All right. The first program I want you to do. A lot of you had a program for me in 121. Hopefully when I put you in groups, somebody will be able to go get it. But we're going to write it in C++. Pennies for pay. Okay, I think we didn't call it penny for pay. We called it something else. It was payday, right? This was called payday. Now, I want you to use a for loop, just like you did in Java. So if you didn't have me, don't panic. Somebody in your group will have it. Once you have it up and running, then I want you to do a while loop in the beginning to check for the input validation. Once you have that running, I want you to put a do loop around the entire thing to run again. Do it in parts. There's going to be somebody in one of the groups that's doing the typing, and they're going to want to try to do the whole thing at once. Get this part working. Boom. Get this part working. Boom. Get this part working. Boom. Okay? The second thing I want you to do, I want you to simulate the rolling of a dice. This dice is going to be rolled 6,000 times. So you're going to have a loop that runs 6,000 times. And you're going to get a random number, 1 to 6. Somebody's going to have to do a little research in the book to find random numbers and how it's similar to what we did before. What we had done before was something along the lines of, I think it was like random 6 plus 1. The random 6 gave me numbers from 0 to 5. The plus 1 moved it up to 1 to 6. So I want you to have an outer loop that runs 6,000 times. Get a random number. If it's a 1, add it to a total for 1. If it's a 2, add it to a total for 2, et cetera, et cetera. And then display how many 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s there were. So there's no user input in this one. This is a batch program. And you're going to be displaying, hopefully, number of 1s will be close to 1,000, maybe more, maybe less. Number of 2s, numbers of 3s, so on and so on. Questions?